In the summer of 2015, me, 7 other Boy Scouts, 3 adult leaders, and 1 trained guide set out on an expedition in the Atikaki National Park in northern Canada. This is that story. I wish that I could tell you that I had more footage than what you're gonna see in this, but I don't. This was at a time when I had only since recently started using a camera, and I really didn't film often, but I filmed the things that mattered. And there's one event in particular that I filmed that you will see in this video that kind of outlines almost like the grunt level of what this trip entailed. Now, this trip was not for the meek. It was not a lighthearted trip. It was something that literally the title of this video describes. We lived on a canoe for 5 days in the backwoods of northern Canada. This story starts when we left from Philly International Airport and we flew to Winnipeg. Now, when we were in Winnipeg, we stayed a night in a hotel and we did like all like the pre-trip things that were kind of just like have a nice dinner. We went to a movie, we saw Jurassic World. It was alright. And then after that, we went and woke up the next morning and we headed 100 miles north into a town called Vixia, Manitoba. This is going up from Winnipeg. And once we got there, that was where our base camp was for the entire expedition itself. And while we were there that one night, we planned out how the trip was going to go in terms of the expedition part, what we were specifically going to try to do throughout the course of the entire time we were out there. And collectively, we decided on putting together a map or a trail rather of a 75-mile loop that would take us approximately from the time that the plane left us to the time that the plane picked us up. Weather permissions were something that were crucial in the event of this entire trip. They could not happen or else we would miss our plane and there was no contact back with them. Although we did have a satellite phone, the guide said he wasn't sure that it worked. So we woke up from base camp in Vixia, Manitoba, and we gathered all of our gear. We put it into seal lock bags. Now we had 4 canoes. All right, 4 canoes, each had 3 people in each canoe. Within each canoe was a food container and a massive pack filled with 3 individual dry packs. Those 3 individual dry packs were the dry packs of all the clothing and gear for each individual person on that canoe. Now, we took that gear and we got on a float plane right on a lake but within the town of Vixia. And once we got on the plane, it flew us 150 miles more north, and that was when we entered the Atikaki National Forest. We touched down in a long strip river or lake, and there was a collection of canoes, and that's when we kind of got assigned our canoe for the week. And the trip started right away with us canoeing. We got in and we literally left right away. Now let me just tell you a little bit about what was in my individual dry pack. See, when you go on a trip like this, the lighter you pack, the better you pack. So basically what I had was 2 pairs of clothes. I had a pair of shorts that were like they were like a water kind of like water resistant, but like not actually, they just dried really quick. So I had a pair of pants of that and I had a pair of shorts. And pair of shorts was what I wore at night. Pants was what I wore during the day. Now, I had one of everything. I had 1 pair of socks, or I had 2 of everything. I had 2 pairs of socks, 2 shoes, pants, shirt, and that was all we need. The weather was kind of it. Now, that was for regular wear. We also had this jacket that was for mosquitoes. I cannot express to you how bad mosquitoes are in northern Canada in the summer. I don't know what they're like the rest of the year, to be perfectly honest with you, but all I know is when I was there, I got 145 mosquito bites around my body. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, how do you know that? Well, when I was in the airport coming back from this awesome trip, we had time because our plane got delayed. We had time while we were sitting in the airport. I went to the bathroom. I was going to the bathroom and I thought to myself, I wonder how many mosquito bites I have on my body right now. So I took about 10 minutes and counted 145 mosquito bites across my body. That's why. The craziest thing is, like, at 10 o'clock every single night, you could hear them coming from a mile away. It was a swarm. Like, you could hear them coming. It was like time to get in your tent, and they would just swarm. There was a point where I was standing away from my friend, no more than 3 feet, shining a flashlight at him at 11 o'clock at night, and I could not see him. That is how dense the mosquitoes are in northern Canada in the summer. So back to the actual trip itself. We left from where the plane dropped us off, where the canoe, base was, out in the Atikaki National Forest we're in now. So we started going along, and I just nailed the tripod. So we started going along the first river that we're on. Now, when you go from river to river, you do these things called portages. Now, portages was like that word during the week where, like, if you said it, people would just be kind of like angry at you, because it was the thing that you looked forward to the least. It was traversing the area, the pieces of land between each body of water that we were in. Now, what you would have to do, and this is how it worked every single time, is one person would carry the backpack from with the food from your canoe. Another person would carry the backpack with your individual dry packs all packed into it, and the third person would carry the canoe by themselves. Now, these canoes were probably about 85, 90 pounds. And if they had good cushions on the bars that were resting on your shoulders, it would have been no problem. But there was a lot more to the story. These canoes had just pretty much wooden bars across the center of them that balanced on your shoulders with very thin pads, protecting your shoulders from the wood. Not that comfortable. And the thing is, too, is the trails that we were on, we were in the middle of nowhere. There is no one that lives where we were. And the trails that we were on are, like, beaten barely. Like, you can see that they're kind of there. At some parts, it's like they're not even there. You're trusting the guide. Like, we were going over rocks, like massive boulders, and, walking along cliffs and edges and stuff. And we had a canoe on our shoulders, some of us, 4 of us, because there were 4 canoes in each group, And the worst thing about the canoes was not even actually carrying, I'm actually like itching thinking about this, was not even just carrying the canoe itself. It was the fact that you had to have both your arms out, resting on the bars in front of you, so you would balance the canoe as you were carrying it, so it wouldn't fly up. Now, that sucked, because if you lift one arm up, the way that it shifts is the canoe would fly up, but you needed that one hand to slap the mosquitoes that were flying all around your face while you were carrying the canoe. Just picture the insanity of that scene. I mean, it like every single time you would probably get, like, I don't know, maybe 20 mosquito bites across your face as you were carrying a canoe over a path that's not really that beaten. And that was probably the most insane part of this entire thing. And it was actually one of the portages towards the end of this entire endeavor that I got footage from, because it's notorious for this trip specifically. What we do is we canoed all day and we portage from body of water to body of water. And at night we'll set up camp. We'll have like tents in those packs and everything. And we'll be able to cook. We ate decent food at night. During the day was when the food was like, ugh. But we caught a lot of fish. Up there the fishing is insane and the fish are huge. And we ate really good when we caught fish, but when we didn't, food was like, because it was freezer-dried food packed inside of a box that we just took with us. The first night that we stayed, we got in late because the float plane got out late, leaving from the base camp, and so we didn't get to our first destination to sleep overnight until it was probably about 9 at night. And as I was saying, the mosquitoes get really bad at night, and at 10 o'clock, forget it. So what happened was we really got nailed with mosquitoes the first night, and none of us were ready for what was coming because none of us expected that the mosquitoes would truly be that bad. But they were. The first night, it was a shame that we weren't able to appreciate it as much as we did, because we stayed on this kind of it was literally right by a waterfall, pretty much, where the water was kind of rushing down. It was really nice to listen to while you were sleeping, but we didn't get to actually look at it and sit there and appreciate it because you're being swarmed with mosquitoes. And I'm going to iterate over how bad the mosquitoes were probably 10 more times throughout the course of this video, but they were really, really bad. And it sucked. But the first camp that we stayed at, first night, was super awesome. We did the same kind of thing each day, where we would get up really early, put on freezing socks that are still soaking wet from the day before because you wore your same clothes while you were out on the canoe and your same clothes while you were on base camp, while you were camping. So you had your wet clothes and your dry clothes. So you'd put on these freezing socks first thing in the morning. My feet were in pain for at least 2 hours every single morning from how cold the clothes were that I had to put back on. And it wasn't just me too. It was everybody facing these problems. But you're probably thinking to yourself, why did you do this? I have no idea. But I have an awesome story to tell. There you go. Every day you get into a canoe and you go and you start portaging. Body of water to body of water. And we stopped at several camps along the way to stay overnight, eat, do our thing. And then we would get up the next morning, first thing in the morning, 5, 6 a.m. every single day. And we would start right away. And we were making good time. The thing is that, like I said earlier, this was so crucial because this was a 75-mile loop that looped from here where the plane picked us up all the way back. Okay, so literally a loop. And if we were over here and there was a tornado or something, the only connection that we had for the plane to let the plane know that they had to pick us up on a different date was a satellite phone that we still don't even know if it worked. So we had a crucial amount of time to be able to get back to the float plane before it got there and left without us. We kept things going. We really were hustling when it came to the speed and the endurance we were keeping with these portages and with the canoeing. The canoeing part was easy. It was the portages again that were just absolutely brutal. The first awful portage was called Vietnam. It was actually the second awful it was the second most awful or brutal portage that we had to go through. It was I think it was just over a half a mile. But that is a long time when you have a canoe on your shoulders. And that one, it was brutal. We got through it, got back in the canoe, and it was just it is what it is. But that was towards the beginning of our slope. And that was kind of so the plane was right here, right, where it dropped us off. Vietnam was right down here. And then we had to go around. Now, once we got over here, this is where the current started to go in our favor, and because it was against us going down here while we were going this way. But once we got up here, the current was actually going in our favor, so it was a little easier to paddle on the second half. Now, the hardest thing about this was the last portage. But at that point, we had all become so close with everything that had just happened. All the complaining turned into just laughs, and it was just honestly one of the greatest things because we got to the last portage, a mile-long portage. Half of it was dry land, half of it was a complete mud pit. This is one of those things where I can't tell you what it was like, but I'm so glad that I have footage to be able to show you what it was like. friends, is called Heartbreak. Heartbreak was brutal, hilarious, drowning, terrible, amazing, muddy, just ridiculous. It took forever for us to get through there. It took us like an hour and 15 minutes, I think, to get across a mile. It was brutal. I mean, like, it was fun, but it was brutal. And like, at that point, though, we just didn't care that we were covered in mud. Like, it just didn't matter. None of us cared because it just was the reality that we were covered in mud. And like, you were probably looking at that video and thinking, aren't there a million ways for you to go around it? The trees were so dense that, like, if you brought a canoe off that main path, it would probably be more painful to actually go try to navigate through the trees with a canoe than it was to just pull it through Heartbreak. Plus, it was like the icon of the trip. You just kind of had to embrace that you were waist deep, if not deeper, in mud. And it was just honestly one of the greatest experiences that I probably will never forget. And the best part was, the mosquitoes weren't even that bad in it, which was like not expected, but an amazing reality. So that was great. And after Heartbreak was when the trip kind of ended. And we kind of canoed to this last island. We stayed overnight and we were able to get to where the plane was picking us up. It was literally right across a very small body of river that we were looking at from the camp that we were at the previous night prior to it picking us up. Now, this float plane was really cool because I've never been on a float plane before, and I don't know the next time I'll be on a float plane, but it was awesome. It was so much fun, and like, it's just a new experience that, like, if you have an opportunity to try it at some point in your life, you absolutely have to do it. I loved it, and I think everybody else that I was with loved it too. And here's a picture of the entire group that went on this trip and the float plane that took us out there. Heartbreak and Vietnam, all the portages. It was just an insane trip. And throughout the course of this trip, we did 31 portages over the course of 5 days with 75 miles from point A to point B. This is my survival trip in Canada.